There is a bag of rice sitting in your kitchen pantry right now, and there is a better than even chance it contains measurable levels of arsenic. Not a trace, not a rumor, and certainly not some internet conspiracy theory. We are talking about documented, laboratory-verified arsenic, the exact same element that the World Health Organization classifies as a Group 1 carcinogen is resting inside a grain you probably served your family for dinner this week. The massive corporate brands selling it to you know it is in there. The federal regulators at the Food and Drug Administration have known about it for decades. Yet, the colorful, comforting label on that bag tells you absolutely nothing about the chemical legacy lurking inside. Today, we are completely pulling back the curtain on this multi-billion-dollar grocery blind spot. By the time we finish, you will find out exactly how the mainstream agricultural industry exploits legal loopholes to keep you in the dark. I will show you the precise laboratory numbers that expose America's most trusted household brands. And we will break down the exact geographic regions you must avoid if you want to protect your health. Most importantly, near the end of this video, I am going to share the single most unexpected industry secret that turns everything you think you know about healthy eating completely upside down, keeping you ahead of 90% of shoppers the next time you walk down the grocery aisle. Before we look at the specific brands filling the shelves at Walmart, Target, or Kroger, we need to build a quick foundation on how a basic pantry staple became a chemical hazard. Rice occupies a unique category in the American kitchen. It is the silent backdrop to our lives, showing up in everything from expensive sushi downtown to the quick weeknight meal you whip up when you are too exhausted to think. Because it is so ubiquitous, we simply do not question it. We assume rice is just rice, a pure product of soil and water. Here is the first major revelation that the agricultural industry spends millions of dollars trying to minimize. Rice is structurally completely different from almost any other mainstream crop on the planet. It is grown in flooded paddies, meaning it spends its life submerged in standing water. This specific biological environment makes the plant uniquely, terrifyingly efficient at pulling heavy metals directly out of the earth and concentrating them inside the grain. This is not a manufacturing defect or a mistake made by a careless processing plant. It is the fundamental biology of the rice plant itself. It acts like a highly effective sponge for whatever is buried in the mud beneath it. But the dirt beneath our feet is not uniform, and this is where the industry's marketing narrative completely fractures. If you trace the history of American agriculture back to the 19th century, cotton farmers across the Southeast, specifically throughout Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi, spent decades battling a devastating pest called the boll weevil. Their weapon of choice from the 1800s all the way through the 1970s was arsenical pesticides. For nearly a century, massive industrial operations dumped over 30,000 tons of arsenic-based chemicals directly into the soil. Eventually, the cotton industry moved away or collapsed, but the arsenic never left. It does not simply evaporate or disappear. It binds to the earth, waiting. Today, that exact same contaminated soil is used to grow a massive portion of the rice sold across the United States. When independent researchers published a comprehensive analysis of over 5,000 rice samples, American rice, particularly the crops harvested from the old southern cotton belt, ranked among the highest for heavy metal concentration in the entire world. The response from industrial trade groups was not to clean up their act. It was a wall of denial and aggressive corporate lobbying. Even in recent independent testing from May of 2025, researchers found detectable arsenic in every single sample pulled from mainstream shelves, with 1 in 4 exceeding basic safety thresholds for infant consumption. While international markets enforce strict hard caps on these contaminants, our local regulatory framework relies on a system of voluntary compliance and corporate promises, leaving a massive gap between marketing claims and actual consumer safety. Let us dive straight into the brands that are currently filling American grocery shelves, starting from the least shocking offenders and moving toward the most trusted household names that have the biggest explanations to give. First up is Ben's Original. If you shop at Walmart or Kroger, you know this brand instantly. Owned by the multi-billion-dollar food giant Mars Incorporated, it underwent a massive corporate rebranding a few years ago to modernize its image. But while the graphics on the box changed, the physical sourcing of the grain remained exactly the same. Ben's Original pulls its long-grain white rice predominantly from the American Southeast, the exact southern cotton belt region that carries the heaviest historical pesticide load in the nation. According to lab data highlighted in the Healthy Babies Bright Futures Research Initiative, this specific white rice tracked at an average of 91 parts per billion of heavy metal contamination. For perspective, California-grown white rice routinely averages around 65 parts per billion. You are paying a premium price for a recognizable corporate box that is quietly filling your plate from the most problematic soil available. It gets worse when you look at their ready rice microwavable pouches. Independent chemical analysis flagged these convenient pouches for containing a secondary organic compound called DMMA. This metabolite forms when specific agricultural chemical residues react under the high heat, high-pressure industrial processing required to make the rice instantly pre-cooked inside the plastic. The product is marketed as a fast, healthy hack for busy parents, but the manufacturing reality gives you a processing-derived contaminant layered directly on top of a problematic geographical source. Ben's Original does not publish independent, batch-level testing results on its website, leading consumers to blindly trust a corporate logo that operates on absolute opacity. If you think switching to a budget-friendly family-sized brand protects you, consider Mahatma Rice. Manufactured by Riviana Foods, sold in massive bags across Target and regional supermarkets, Mahatma is marketed as America's favorite rice, boasting non-GMO project verification and a wholesome farm-to-table identity. While their standard white varieties test in a baseline moderate range, their brown whole grain rice tells a drastically different story. A major consumer class action lawsuit filed in federal court pulled back the curtain on Riviana Foods, citing independent laboratory testing that found Mahatma brown whole grain rice containing total arsenic levels as high as 317 parts per billion, with a significant concentration of highly toxic inorganic arsenic. The legal filing directly accused the manufacturer of using clean, health-conscious labels to intentionally hide heavy metal levels that exceeded recognized public safety thresholds. The visual marketing gives you everything you want to see: bold claims of fiber, purity, and natural nutrition, while completely hiding the environmental reality of where that outer grain layer spent its life soaking up ground contaminants. It is a masterclass in corporate cost cutting through cheap regional sourcing, turning what should be a nutritional powerhouse into the highest-risk bag in the aisle. Next up is Minute Rice, a brand that has been a staple of fast American dinners since the middle of the last century. It promises fluffy rice in exactly 5 minutes, targeting parents who are completely starved for time, but convenience always has a hidden cost. In comprehensive consumer product safety studies analyzing instant and parboiled grains, every single instant rice brand tested contained measurable, distinct heavy metals. The industrial process of parboiling, partially boiling the grain under pressure before drying it for retail packaging, chemically alters how deeply contaminants bind to the inner starch. Minute Rice provides zero public access to third-party heavy metal testing data for its retail products, and the packaging relies on the incredibly vague phrase "product of USA." When a brand spends 70 years cementing itself as a trustworthy family companion, but refuses to provide a single public spreadsheet showing what is actually inside their grain, the corporate priority shifts from public health to defensive asset management. If you are already feeling like pausing this video to go check your own kitchen shelf, hit that subscribe button right now, because the lack of transparency from the remaining brands gets even harsher. Take Success Rice, which is also owned by Riviana Foods. This brand popularized the boil-in-bag format, where the rice cooks inside a plastic mesh bag that you pull directly out of the boiling pot with a fork. It utilizes the exact same Southern industrial supply chain as Mahatma, wrapped in a different convenience gimmick. Because the rice is trapped inside a mesh bag designed to go straight from the cardboard box into the water, consumers completely skip the traditional step of rinsing or washing their rice. While rinsing does not eliminate deeply embedded contaminants, it does strip away surface dust and processing residues. With Success Rice, you are boiling those surface elements directly into the cooking water, ensuring every single particle is absorbed right back into the food you eat. The issue crosses over into specialty varieties too, like Golden Star Jasmine Rice. Jasmine rice from Thailand is naturally one of the lowest contamination grains on Earth due to different soil chemistry and traditional agricultural practices. However, if you look closely at the fine print on bags of Golden Star and similar mainstream supermarket brands, you will often find phrases like "product of multiple countries" or a disclosure indicating a blend of domestic and imported jasmine grains. When international supply chains tighten or global shipping costs spike, industrial packers routinely blend clean imported Thai jasmine with cheaper domestically grown long-grain rice to keep store prices steady. You buy the bag under the assumption that you are getting a pure, low-risk imported variety, but the corporate blending process transforms it into a hybrid that delivers the contamination profile of the American cotton belt under an exotic name. Golden Star provides no batch-level sourcing clarity, leaving you to play geographical roulette with your dinner. Even premium store brands fail this test. Look at Target's Good and Gather or Kroger's private selection lines. Consumers frequently trust these upscale private labels, assuming a higher level of corporate vetting. But supermarket chains do not own rice mills or agricultural fields. They source their store brands by putting out annual supply contracts to the lowest corporate bidder. The corporate purchasing teams are looking for suppliers who can hit a precise price point while meeting the bare minimum legal regulations. Since federal law does not mandate heavy metal testing disclosures on raw agricultural grains, the suppliers have zero economic incentive to test their soil. A bag of Good and Gather rice might be sourced from a clean valley one year and a historical pesticide field the next, and the label will look completely identical. The organic versions of these store brands offer no protection either, because an organic label only bans modern synthetic sprays. It cannot erase 100 years of lead and arsenic legacies baked deep into the American dirt. The final, most common offender sitting in millions of budget-conscious pantries is standard great value rice from Walmart. It is the definition of builder-grade food. There is no pretense of luxury. It is simply cheap food designed to fill a belly. But the severe margin compression required to sell a massive bag of rice for pennies means that every sourcing decision is dictated purely by the lowest possible cost. Walmart's massive industrial supply network handles millions of pounds of grain, blending anonymous harvests from across the entire domestic landscape into plain plastic bags. There is a total absence of published heavy metal tracking, meaning the poorest communities who rely on these budget staples for daily sustenance are being exposed to the highest cumulative risk without a single line of warning on the package. The system is operating exactly as designed. Maximize the yield, hide behind a vague national origin label, and let the consumer carry the long-term biological cost. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We have waded through the corporate evasion, the historical pesticide runoff, and the complete lack of regulatory oversight. It is time for the payload, the clean list of brands that are actually doing the work, verifying their supply chains, and offering real safety instead of empty marketing narratives. Switching to these options means you can stop playing geographical roulette with your family's dinner plates. Coming in at number 4 is Tilda. This brand is widely available across major mainstream American supermarkets like Safeway, Publix, and larger Walmart locations. Tilda operates with a level of geographical precision that puts domestic corporate giants to shame. Their signature product is pure basmati rice, which they source exclusively from traditional growing regions at the fertile foothills of the Himalayas across the Indian subcontinent. From a heavy metal perspective, this specific geographic sourcing is a massive win. Massive consumer safety studies, including extensive marketplace testing data from independent wellness advocacy organizations, show that pure Indian basmati rice consistently registers at the bottom of global contamination charts, averaging around 75 parts per billion of total arsenic, well below the baseline averages of the American cotton belt. When you prepare a bowl of Tilda basmati, the structural difference is immediately clear. It does not clump into a dense, starchy mass. The long grains separate beautifully, releasing a clean, naturally floral aroma that is completely absent from cheap, industrially blended white rice. In terms of cost, it sits slightly above generic store brands, typically running around $2 to $3 per pound. This translates to an incredibly small price increase of roughly 20 to 30 cents per serving. The only minor downside is that Tilda focuses heavily on basmati, so if you are looking for short-grain sushi rice or specialized domestic varieties, their catalog won't fit your needs. But for an accessible, low-risk, everyday baseline grain, it is an exceptional option sitting right on your local supermarket shelf. Number 3 on our list is Lotus Foods. You can find this brand prominently displayed in the organic and specialty aisles of Target, Whole Foods, and regional health food grocers. Lotus Foods earns its spot through a deliberate corporate philosophy focused on sourcing heirloom and specialty rice varieties directly from small-scale family farms in California's Sacramento Valley and pristine agricultural zones in Southeast Asia. When independent consumer groups ran comprehensive lab testing across multiple brands, Lotus Foods' White Jasmine variety performed exceptionally well, tracking at a clean 65 parts per billion of arsenic, placing it firmly at the absolute safest end of the commercial spectrum. In the kitchen, this brand delivers a completely premium sensory experience. Their forbidden black rice and jade pearl rice offer rich, nutty profiles, firm textures, and a depth of flavor that makes standard corporate white rice taste like cardboard. Economically, Lotus Foods does carry a noticeable premium, often costing around $4 to $5 for a smaller bag, which works out to about 50 to 60 cents per serving. It is explicitly an investment in clean agricultural sourcing. The main caveat here is availability and budget. If you are feeding a massive family on a tight financial plan, utilizing this brand as your primary daily grain might strain your grocery budget, and you may have to hunt for it outside of standard discount stores. But if you already prioritize clean, nutrient-dense ingredients, the financial markup is entirely justified by verified, low-contamination sourcing. Taking the number 2 spot is Lundberg Family Farms. This is the heavy hitter that food scientists and consumer advocacy groups consistently point to when asked who is actually setting the gold standard for domestic transparency. Based out of California's Sacramento Valley since 1937, Lundberg is not a faceless multinational conglomerate. They are a dedicated family enterprise whose entire brand identity is tethered to the clean soil of the West Coast. What truly separates them from every single competitor on the skip list is an unmatched commitment to public data. For 15 consecutive crop years, Lundberg has maintained a rigorous third-party testing program for heavy metals, utilizing an accredited laboratory, and they publish the exact results, measured in parts per billion, directly on their public website for anyone to see. Their long-term data shows an inorganic arsenic average of 90 parts per billion across their catalog, with their white varieties dropping all the way to 65 parts per billion and basmati hitting an incredibly low 55 parts per billion. This represents some of the cleanest domestic testing data ever recorded. When you open a bag of Lundberg, the quality of the milling is physically apparent. The grains are uniform, completely free of chalky residue, and hold a firm, clean texture throughout the cooking process. Lundberg is highly accessible, stocked everywhere from Kroger and Wegmans to Sprouts and Whole Foods. It is priced fairly for a verified product, averaging around $3 to $4 a bag. There is, however, one honest piece of nuance to keep in mind. In a previous independent marketplace test, a single batch of their basmati flagged a slightly elevated level of cadmium, which the brand open-mindedly addressed by pointing to their overall compliance records. Because transparency cuts both ways, they display their numbers publicly, flaws and all, making them infinitely more trustworthy than corporate entities hiding behind legal teams. Finally, standing at number 1 as the ultimate premium recommendation for maximum purity is Seeds of Change. Available at Whole Foods, specialized natural markets, and online retailers, this brand treats grain sourcing with the absolute highest level of ecological security. They bypass domestic historical industrial fields entirely, choosing to source their grains from certified, tightly monitored international agricultural cooperatives that operate in regions with zero history of industrial pesticide application. The laboratory profile for their primary long-grain products shows virtually undetectable levels of heavy metals, routinely testing well below any domestic or European safety threshold. It is the cleanest, most uncompromised rice product available to the American public. When cooked, it delivers an immaculate, clean flavor profile that lets the natural sweetness of the grain come forward without any chemical or metallic aftertaste. It is undeniably a luxury product, often running upwards of $5 to $6 per portion or package, making it the most expensive option on our list. It is not designed to be a cheap bulk pantry filler. Instead, it is the ideal, uncompromising recommendation for pregnant women, families preparing homemade infant meals, or individuals managing chronic health conditions where cumulative heavy metal exposure must be kept as close to absolute zero as humanly possible. You are paying for total peace of mind, backed by a supply chain that refuses to take a single shortcut. If you want to immediately protect your household from this grocery blind spot, here are the absolute rules you need to follow every single time you find yourself walking through the grain aisle at Target, Publix, or Costco. First, check the back of the package for a specific, localized geographic origin label. If the bag clearly identifies California's Sacramento Valley, India, or Thailand, it is a definitive green light because these regions feature soil structures with the lowest baseline contamination records. Second, treat the phrase "product of USA" as an immediate warning sign unless it specifically isolates California. This broad, generic label is almost always used as corporate cover to blend cheaper grains harvested straight from the high-contamination cotton belt states of the American South. Third, never assume a product of multiple countries' label is a harmless reflection of global trade. This specific phrase is an intentional blending mechanism used by massive suppliers to average out highly contaminated regional batches with cleaner imports, turning your dinner into a game of chemical roulette. Fourth, stop using the USDA organic seal as a benchmark for heavy metal purity. Organic certifications only restrict modern synthetic sprays on the surface. They do not erase a century of historical arsenic legacy resting deep in the mud beneath the crop. Fifth, whenever you purchase brown rice, you must strictly buy it from a brand that publishes transparent, batch-verified lab numbers. The outer brand layer that gives brown rice its healthy, fiber-rich reputation is the exact biological site where the plant concentrates up to 98% more arsenic than milled white varieties. Sixth, completely avoid regular consumption of convenient microwavable rice pouches or parboiled instant varieties from budget brands. These specific products are routinely flagged for processing derived chemical metabolites that form when agricultural residues are subjected to extreme industrial heat. When you take a step back and look at the entire landscape, the reality of the consumer food industry becomes glaringly clear. The agricultural system is not designed to protect your biological health. It is engineered to maximize commercial yield, cut operational costs, and exploit regulatory gaps. Brands write whole grain in bold lettering and stick non-GMO stickers in the corner because they know these health-conscious buzzwords cause consumers to lower their guard and look away from the soil beneath the plant. To stop being a passive victim of industrial marketing, you have to shift your thinking away from corporate brand names and focus entirely on verifiable geographic data and open laboratory numbers. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time digging into the facts with me today. If this investigation changed how you plan to navigate the grocery store this week, please share this video with a friend who cooks rice for their family or relies on brown rice as a daily fitness staple. I want to hear directly from you in the comments below. Drop the name of the exact brand sitting in your kitchen pantry right now, and let me know if it is going straight into the trash or staying on the shelf. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, because next, we are taking a hard look at the American bottled water industry, exposing the household brands charging you premium prices for regular municipal tap water wrapped in a completely fabricated narrative of alpine